Hello and welcome to Penguin Classics On Air. This is Elda Roeder, Editorial Director of Penguin Classics. What's classic about the 80s? The art of Keith Haring. His bold and dynamic work filtered into the world's consciousness and is still instantly recognizable 20 years after his death. Keith Haring's journals debuts in Penguin Classics and features 90 new and updated black and white images and a foreword by artist Shepard Fairey. Today we have 4 guests to guide us through Keith Haring's world, from the galleries to the hip-hop grooves of graffiti art, and from the causes he championed to the socio-political art that inspires the next generation of artists. Penguin Classics On Air commemorates and celebrates Keith Haring, a radiant classic. One of New York's most prominent art dealers and gallerists, Jeffrey Deitch, has played a major role in the American contemporary art scene since the early 1980s. He is the founder of Deitch Projects, which is the exclusive representative of the estate of Keith Haring. Deitch has been involved with the work of Haring since 1980. His gallery has produced over 250 projects and public events by artists from 33 countries since its opening in 1996. Jeffrey Deitch is the new director of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. When did you first meet Keith Haring, and what were your initial thoughts about his work and his potential?
So I first met Keith around the time of the Times Square show in 1980. And like everybody else in the downtown community who met him, we knew instantly that he was a major artist. It was apparent from the very beginning.
And what were the main differences between Keith's relationship and approach to the art world and to the general public with the art he created?
Well, Keith was an artist who believed in dealing directly with the public. And so rather than following a traditional path of trying to introduce his work to some insiders and showing in small galleries and group shows, he just went right out and did the work on the street.
Would you say that he was a pioneer in doing that?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of his biggest areas of influence.
And what were some of the most memorable exhibits you worked on with Keith?
That I worked on? Well, I wrote the catalog introduction for his famous 1982 exhibition at the Tony Shafrazi Gallery. So that was a wonderful collaboration. I was very involved with the design of the book. It was designed by Dan Friedman, who then did a number of projects with me. And then I subsequently wrote the catalog introduction for Keith's exhibition at the Stedelijk Museum in 1985.
Keith writes in his journals about many of the international exhibits and meeting other artists and supporters of his work around the world. What was his reception like in Europe and Asia compared to in the U.S.?
Perhaps outside of New York, where Keith made a tremendous impact, perhaps his biggest impact was in France, Belgium, Germany, Italy, and in Japan. As you know, the pop shop actually opened in Tokyo.
Yes. What are the most significant changes to the art world compared to during the time when artists such as Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat thrived?
One of the biggest changes is, I think, Keith's influence is completely evident, that Keith changed the whole system about how artists look at their public. So younger artists like Murakami, Shepard Fairey are very much in the tradition of Keith Haring.
In the current art scene, then, which artists' works do you think Keith would respond to most strongly?
Well, that's hard to say, but I think he would be very pleased to see the tremendous revival of art inspired by street culture and all the artists who are finding a direct way to get their work out to the public.
In your own words, what makes Keith Haring a classic?
Well, it's a combination of all of these talents. So, first of all, it's the ability to create strong, memorable images that really speak to people. And he's one of the rare artists where people involved in visual culture have Keith's prime imagery in their mind. And he's one of also the rare artists whose work is in a serious dialogue with modern art history, but it's also totally accessible to a wide public. from children to older people, people who are very knowledgeable about Picasso and Leger, African art. They can relate to Keith and appreciate what he's doing. And also people who don't have a deep art education but have a strong sensibility to visual imagery, they can relate to Keith. He's the ultimate artist who combines serious engagement with art history and populism.
You're listening to Penguin Classics On Air.
This program is brought to you by Penguin Books, the publisher of The Piano Teacher. This New York Times bestseller, called A Rare and Exquisite Story by Elizabeth Gilbert, is a sweeping tale of love and betrayal set in war-torn Hong Kong. As the threads of this spellbinding novel intertwine, impossible choices emerge between love and safety, courage and survival, the present, and above all, the past. The Piano Teacher, available now in paperback.